so that we are good to go. Okay, cool. What I just want to go over briefly now with you guys is just introduction to the classroom. So this is the classroom view. As you guys can see, I think Desiree did take you through this, so I'm going to go through it very quickly. You can see who all the people are in the classroom over here. What we will do as well is Desiree will set up assignments or tests for you guys to do on here, like maybe just a few multiple choice questions that you guys can go over, and we will do that before every class. So after every class I will or maybe not in that week, in the week we have off, Desiree will post a test for you guys to do, and that we can go over in the following class. What I will do also, because physics is such, there's a lot of theory, I will expect you guys to cover the theory yourself, and then what you can do is just come through with a few questions that you might have regarding the theory that I can just quickly explain, and then we'll just go over the calculations that are related to that theory in that classroom. I think that's the best way that we can work this to get through all the content that you guys want me to get through. So with regards to classwork, your textbooks over here, this is the one for the learners, so you will use this textbook if you want a full detailed view. I think I have it open here. That's the teacher's guide. Where is it now? This one. So here's your textbook basically. Try and move to the contents page. Yeah, right. And then what I would prefer to use is the CAPS guide. Here is one for chemistry and the one for physics. I prefer the Mind the Gap because it's nicely summarized. But what I will do is, if there's some content I've noticed, like with life science, for example, there's some content that is not in the Mind the Gap book that you guys do actually need to know in, that are only in the textbook and not in the Mind the Gap book. So I will refer to the textbook every now and again for some content. What I would advise for you guys to do is to go through the textbook content first, and then go through the summary that is in the Mind the Gap. So make sure you know everything, at least read through that, and then go through the Mind the Gap book. Okay. And then with regards to study guides, I haven't actually looked at this. I'll take some time to look at it throughout next week and then get back to you guys on this. But I'm sure that they are helpful as well. What I will be doing is, I'm sure Desiree took you through this. You have past papers that come straight from the WCED department. You have papers from 2023 all the way back to 2015. So you have a lot of practice papers. And one thing I must say about physics is, similarly to maths, it's practice constantly, because it's a lot of calculations. Most of your marks are going to come from those calculations, right? I will upload all the content over here, obviously, and then what I will do is I'll also upload YouTube videos that may help, because sometimes my explanations you might not understand. I will find people on YouTube that maybe explain it better than I do. Okay. So yeah, that's the classroom basically. We'll take the classroom week by week, again with the content that you ask me to go over. I don't think I have time to do every single thing. Alright, so I just want to go over this document with you guys. This is the examination guidelines. I think this is extremely helpful when it comes to just the breakdown of understanding how to get maximum marks from the work. Okay, so let's just go through this quickly. I'm skipping the introduction. You have your breakdown here. Firstly, physics first and then chemistry, right? Both of them have multiple choice questions with 20 marks, and then the other 130 marks are structured questions. So that's based on theory as well as calculations. Okay. So I just want to skip that. You can see here, according to the weighting of the prescribed content for physics, it focuses on mechanics. So that's your velocity and equations of motion. a lot of that will fit in there. Then you have wave, sound, and light. You have electricity and magnetism, as well as matter and materials, which is the final section. You can notice over here that, let me just erase this, your biggest section is mechanics, so most of your marks you will get from that. I actually enjoy this section the most. I think it's the most simple out of the rest, so I will focus a lot on mechanics and electricity and magnetism. You can also see it's a sorry, I don't know what's going on this pen. It's a big section as well. What's up with the... Ooh, there's something wrong with this pen, seriously. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, and then moving on to paper 2, you see chemical change and matter material. So again, it's a very, very basic breakdown here. There's actually a more comprehensive one if you scroll down, which I will get to that now. I just want to go over this here quickly. It's important for you guys to be able to draw accurate graphs, right? So they'll give you data or information. You must be able to draw the correct graphs from this. If you do need that, I might pick out a lesson where I will teach you guys how to draw all these graphs, etc. Maybe closer to exam time, I will do that. Sketches as well. So if they ask you to draw out like maybe chemical equations, you would have to know how to do that. Yeah, and then calculations are very important. Yeah. Okay. Here's the breakdown of the paper 1 and paper 2. This breakdown is quite comprehensive, so I want you guys to, if you want a summary of the content, go through this. So this breakdown here. So here's Newton's laws, right? If you keep going down, there's more Newton's laws there. There's momentum and impulse, which is another thing that's quite important. This is still under mechanics. Vertical projectile motion, that's also mechanics. Work, energy, power as well. So this content, what I'm showing you now, this is a summary of basically all the content. It's a very, very short summary, but it has everything you need to know. So what I would say is, once we're done with all the content, or at least done with a section, go through this list over here, go through all of this, right? And try and see if you know all of this information, because if you know this, there's a solid chance you'll be set for the exam time when the exam comes. Okay. I'm going to keep going. There's obviously a lot more: conservation of energy, power, Doppler effect. So this is all still physics, right? There's electric circuits. As you can see in here, there's formulas and stuff as well. So it explains all the information you need to know in here. But remember, it's quite summarized. It doesn't have the information in detail. Okay. Going on to paper 2, chemistry starts over here. Sorry about that. There's quantitative aspects of chemistry, which mainly the calculations here. Intermolecular forces, organic molecules. One thing I must say, it's important to know this table when it comes to chemistry, right? I need you to know basically this table. There's a lot of questions that are related around this. There's a lot of 1 or 2 more questions that are related to this table that you can get easy marks for in the multiple choice section and in the first few questions of the paper when it comes to chemistry. So knowing your alkanes, alkenes, alkynes, alcohols, ketones, etc. Alright, so make a note that this table is important. This table also helps you figure out the IUPAC names, which I'm sure most of you should know what I'm talking about now. IUPAC is basically, for those that don't know, sorry, it's a naming system for chemical formulas, right? So you see how, let's look at a simple example. This is called butane, right? So the reason why it's called butane, according to the IUPAC, if you have 1, 2, 3, 4 carbons, the first part of this thing would be BUT, right? So that BUT refers to the fact that there's 4 carbons. If it's let's say if it was 1 carbon, it would be meth, right? 2 carbons is eth, and then 4 is but. What is 3? I forgot what 3 is. Yeah, but I think there's a table in the textbook that gives a bit more detail. But yeah, and the other part of this, the suffix, so the BUT is the prefix, and then the suffix, the ANE, is made up of the fact that it's all single bonds between the carbons. So ANE, you'll see that according to the table here, alkane, there's a ANE there, there's only a single bond. You see it says ENE here, alkene, because there's a double bond. So you can read it here also. It's double bond, ene, only single bonds, ane, right? So yeah, this helps you with naming as well as understanding the actual chemical formula and getting information that they may ask for this. I want to say that again, 1 or 2 marks questions, the 1 or 2 mark questions, the very short questions, you can get a lot of them from this table and from understanding how to read this table and apply it to these questions. Yeah. Energy and change, there's more sections there. Chemical equilibrium, acids and bases, which we will go over also. I think it's a little bit complicated there for chemistry. Where are we? Electrochemical reactions, there's some more there as well. Yeah, so that's basically a breakdown. So remember, go through this after each section, make sure you know everything that is here for the paper. What I would suggest though, just to make this seem like it's not that much work, because I feel like it might be a little bit overwhelming to you guys right now, looking at how much things you have to go over. What I would suggest is focus on the sections that you know very well. The sections that you know you will get marks on, make sure you have that down so that when it comes to the test, whatever question they throw at you, you know you're guaranteed to get those marks. And then once you have that down, then you focus on the sections that you struggle with a little bit, like I use a robot pattern when I study for this. So the sections that I have green, I make sure that I have that down 100%. The sections that I know I'm good at. So those ones I mark green, and I know that I'll guarantee to get those marks in the test. Then I move on to the questions that are marked yellow, right? Like a robot. Those are the ones I do next. Those are the ones that I actually I have a good idea of, but there's still some things that I might struggle with. And then the ones that I have read that I don't know much about, or it's really difficult for me to understand, those are the ones I don't really focus on that much. Or if you are looking to improve your mark, which I'm sure some of you are, I would say focus on the ones that are red. The ones that are, if you are working to improve your physics mark, focus on the red, then the orange, and then the green, because you by now you would know that the green is important. The green, you obviously need to improve on the sections you struggle with. But for like the likes of Etienne, who is going to be doing physics now for the first time, I would suggest focus on the content then move on to the yellow, the content that is kind of difficult, but you can kind of get it, and then do the harder ones last. That will be enough to get you a pass mark, to get you, I'm not sure what you're going for. Etienne, can you actually tell me what are you looking for? Are you looking for just a pass, or are you trying to get a good to decent mark?
Good evening. Sorry for greeting again. I'm just doing it not necessarily for something in the future. It's just something that always was there, and a curiosity towards the physics. Yes.
Okay, that's good to hear. So your goal is to get a decent mark then?
Yes.
Okay,
decent,
100%.
respectable amount.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad. I like the ambition.
Thank you.
And for the other two students, I think it's Jiray. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely to pass. Yeah,
just
that's
a
the
pass mark
minimum.
or improvement on your marks?
Yeah, improvement.
Okay, okay, okay. No, then you can focus on what I said. And then for Dominique as well.
Yeah, same for me. Also, just the improvement on the market I currently have.
Okay, okay, 100%. That's perfect. Um, all right. So then, yeah, you can definitely focus on that. For the ones that are looking for improvement, it's focus on red, then leave the green for not as important, and then for Etienne it would be to focus on what you know. Okay. Quantities and symbols. This is symbols you would need to know. So like mass and position, you need to know these things, and then the unit associated with it. A lot of the time, this stuff will be given to you in the exam, but this table is a basic understanding of all the symbols and values you're going to be working with as we get through these two physics and chemistry papers. Okay. In the exam, obviously, they give you a formula sheet. They give you these physical constants, so you don't need to remember this data. You don't really need to remember this. They will give this to you in the exam. Formulas as well, they'll give to you. But again, I want to say practice, practice, practice. The more you practice, the more you'll end up remembering these values. Okay. Just for interest sake, I would like you guys to know that I really like motion. It's a section that I know I can get good marks in. So if you have problems with this, I can definitely help you there. Force as well. Work energy is kind of good, not the greatest. So I'm gonna put a bit of a question mark there. That was a mistake. Sorry. But actually, work energy power. This is not a complicated section for me. Apologies. I actually enjoy that. Okay, waves and sound is decent. Electrostatics. This is a section where I think you guys can get quite a lot of marks. So this is a section I would say focusing on motion and force. So also you can get quite a few marks if you understand that well. Okay. Electric circuits is also not too complicated. I didn't find this too complicated when I was doing physics in high school. It's just about understanding what they're trying to ask, breaking down the word equation or word question that they give you, and basically just trying to picture it as a diagram. Helps a lot when it comes to electric circuits. Alternating current is a maybe. I don't think they focus too much on alternating current, so there won't be a lot of marks there. And then for paper 2, here's your constants again, right? They'll give this to you. They'll also give you the table, the formula. This equation right here is something you'll be using a lot. So remember this one. Sometimes use this every now and again. There's always one question that involves this one. Usually one question that involves pH as well. And then this is electromagnetic forces. So this is something also pretty important, but we'll get to that at some point. Right. Your periodic table. So what I would suggest you guys have to know, I'm going to look at this periodic table over here, is you see this one has the names in there as well. I would suggest you guys understand how to read a periodic table. I will upload a YouTube video that will teach all these basics. I think that's what I'll do through the course of next week. I'll upload all the videos that teach you through the basics of understanding physics. So how to read a periodic table, how to read is another table here. This standard reduction potential table, how to read, what else is there? There's quite a bit. How to draw graphs, basically just the general and the basics for how to do certain things, how to draw certain things, how to understand certain things. I'll upload all of that this week so you guys can get an idea of when we do eventually go over it in the question papers, you're not completely clueless. Yeah. So we will go over that at some point, and then what I'll do is I'll try and upload everything this week or next week, and then I'll just refer back to those videos as we go through those sections as well. The marking guidelines. This is something that I actually want to go over with you guys, because this is understanding these marking guidelines can actually help you maximize the amount of marks you get for each question. Okay, so I'm going to go over it here quickly. Let me just zoom in a little bit. It's a bit too far. Okay, so firstly, marks will be awarded for 1, correct formula, correct substitutions, and then the correct answer with the unit. So important thing to note here, 1 mark for formula. If you don't even know how to calculate the question, so when you get a question and you don't know what they're asking for, or you at least have a general idea of what section it's related to, write down a formula. Just by simply writing down a formula, you automatically get 1 mark. Okay, and then what you do after writing a formula is you try and substitute those values into the formula. You can get another possibly 3 marks just by getting the correct substitutions, right? So let's say, for example, I'm looking for a question example. Yeah, if you look at here, you get 1 mark for writing the formula here, right? Another mark over here for getting a substitution correct, and another mark for getting a substitution correct, right? And then the final mark is getting the correct value as well as the correct unit. So there's 4 marks in this question. You see, it's a simple question. You get 4 marks just for getting the formula, substitution, and the correct value and unit. This is a simple question because it only requires 1 formula. It's not 1 formula to get a certain value that you need to put into a second formula. There's some questions that are like that. It's a bit more complicated, but these types of questions, you can get an easy 4 marks right there. Okay, so if we look at an example where you get the correct formula, but you don't have the correct substitution, here's 1 mark for having the correct formula, 1 mark over here for the correct substitution, but then you see here they substituted the 52 in the wrong place. So the 52 should have been here. So therefore you automatically get 2 marks for just writing down the formula and filling in the substitutions, hoping you put it in the right place. You understand? So already you get half the marks for that question, even if you didn't know how to calculate it. Yeah, and then again, yeah, 1 mark for correct formula, 1 mark for the correct substitution, right? Why they're not showing that? So there should be 2 marks here because there's a substitution there and a substitution there. So you really automatically get 3 marks there. Correct formula, 2 substitutions correct. But you see, the reason why this person got this question wrong here is because they had it in the incorrect value. It was substituted in incorrectly. Sorry, my apologies. They manipulated the sum incorrectly. Yeah, that was the problem. Yeah, they manipulated from here to here. They manipulated the equation incorrectly, and that's why they got the final answer wrong. But even if you manipulated incorrectly, you do something wrong with your calculations, you still get a mark for the correct substitution. So you can still get 3 marks even if your answer is incorrect. So that's the important thing I would say with physics, right? Even if you don't get the correct answer, you can still get close to all the marks for a specific question. So always remember, write down a formula and just fill in values that they give you in the question to get some marks for a question. And in addition to this point, one thing I must say is never leave your a question blank. If you don't know how to answer a question, just write something down. By writing something down, the marker will read through that, see if they find something that is correct, and they might give you a mark for that. So never leave a question blank, even if you don't know what the correct answer is, but you have some idea of what they're asking about or the section they're referring to. Just write something. You never know, you might just get a mark. Okay. Then to focus on when errors made during the substitution of the correct formula, a mark will be awarded for the correct formula and for the correct substitution. So that's what I explained here. You can get a mark for, where is it? You can get a mark for the correct formula and the one correct substitution, but then you'll just lose the mark for the second substitution and the final answer. Okay. So that's important. Remember, this is why I say always write the formula. If you have no formula, right, but your substitutions are correct, you will still lose a mark. So you always need to write down the formula. So even if the question says, and it gives you the formula at the beginning of the question, write it down. You might just get a mark for it. Okay. Wait, what else did I want to go over? Carry no marks, we can thoughts of the correct formula. So it says here, carry no marks, but if a candidate starts off with the correct formula and then changes the subject of the formula incorrectly, marks will still be awarded for the formula and the correct substitutions. It's just that you'll forfeit the mark for the final answer. So again, like I said, if you have the correct formula but you substitute incorrectly, or you substitute correctly but you manipulate the equation incorrectly, like you change things around to try and get the final answer, you will still get the mark for the formula and the substitutions. So if the mark is out of 4, you can still get 3, right? And again, marks will only be awarded if a calculation has been attempted, right? So if you don't know how to calculate a question but you put down a formula and you put down a substitution, just write down an answer. Even if you're writing down the completely incorrect answer, just write it down. You could still get marks for a formula and a substitution. Okay. Yeah. Oh, another thing I want to say to you guys is, if you're using, let me go find the this table. If you are using a formula, right, I'm going to use the force ones for example because it's the one I remember the most. If you're using, let's say, this formula over here, right, always make sure on the side of your page you are writing down like F net, right, equals net force, right? Make sure you're writing that down in words. M, right, equals mass, and A equals Excel. Oh, that's terrible. Okay, that's acceleration. Always make sure you're writing down a key to every question, right? Make sure you write this down, is because sometimes the marker might not write F net, they'll just write maybe F, and they won't know that your F net is for net force. So there's some cases where, like for friction for example, you can write Fs. They might not know that that's your value for the force of static friction, so therefore they won't understand what this means. So always write down Fs equals static friction, right? Always write it down on the side of the page, and then still write down the formula as well, and then do the substitutions. So what I can say is, if you're using the, like for example, static friction in 3 separate equations, if you wrote it down for the first one, as long as it's on the page, you don't need to write it for the second and the third, but just make sure it's written down somewhere on the page, just so the marker can know what you are referring to. And the reason for that is you don't want the marker to have a confusion about what you're referring to and then just mark you wrong. You want the marker to be sure that what they're reading, they know what they're reading, and that they can give you the maximum amount of marks possible. So always be sure to write a key at the corner of your page, somewhere on the page, as you're attempting each question. Alright. Does everyone understand me so far? Are we still okay with what I've gone through so far?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Let's go back to that mark allocation. Alright. All calculations are not specified in the question must be rounded off to a minimum. This is also important. All calculations always rounded off to 2 decimal places. So if you have a calculation that gives you, let's say, 1,36548, right? Always round it off to 2 decimal places. So this would be 1,37, because this 5 pushes that 66 to a 7, so 1.37. Or another example, 23,815, right? Rounded off to 3,82, right? And remember, always the unit, whatever the unit is, right? Always include the final answer and the unit in your equation. So 2 decimal places, value and the unit. Always important. Okay. Markers will always ensure that the correct and appropriate formula is used at the workings and include substitutions are correct. Okay. Questions where a series of calculations don't necessarily always have to follow the same order. Full marks will be awarded provided that it is a valid solution to the problem. Okay, that's fine. Units. So candidates will only be penalized once for the repeated use of incorrect units. So that's not something you really need to focus on. You won't lose too many marks if you're using the incorrect unit in equation. Okay. Again, units are only required in the final answer of a calculation. So this is something I've made a mistake on multiple times when I was doing physics, even in university. I would get the final answer, but I would forget to put the unit in, and then I would lose a mark. And that one mark, could have been the difference between a pass or a fail, or the difference between a 61% and a 75% or something like that, depending on the marks for the paper. Like, that one mark can actually cost you a distinction or whatever mark you're looking for. So always be sure to write down the unit. It's and not for you, so okay. And then it says the SI units must be used except in certain cases. So yeah. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, so it says SI units must be used. That just means that the units that they give you in the equation must be used, or the units that is set for that specific section. So for example, we normally work in meters per second, not kilometers per hour. So usually the unit must always be set in the standard one, which is meters per second, unless the question asks you to calculate it in kilometers per hour. Okay. So unless the question says otherwise, always stick to the standard unit for that specific question. And then what I wanted to go over is positive marking. So this positive marking can actually help you. So what this says is, when a certain variable is incorrectly calculated in one sub question and needs to be substituted into another question, full marks will be awarded for the second question. So let's say in 3.1 you did a calculation and the answer was 4.32, and then in question 3.2, right, you need to use the 4.32, right, in your equation to give you another answer, and that answer gives you another answer of, let's say, 2.1, right? This answer will obviously be correct. This answer 2.1 will always obviously be incorrect if the answer in 3.1 is incorrect, right? So this value will be incorrect. But because of positive marking, if you do not get the correct answer in 3.1, this value being substituted into 3.2, if you do the equation correctly, you can still get full marks for 3.2. Do you understand that? So even if you get the answer incorrect here, you can still get a mark for formula and substitution. But let's say the final answer is incorrect. That final answer being used in 3.2 could still get you full marks if you write down the formula and do the correct substitution, and then your calculation is correct according to that sum or that equation. So this positive marking can help even if you mess up on the first question. Alright. But that only applies if it's across two questions. So if it's across like 3.1 to 3.2. If it's a multi-step question, right, that is like, let's just say it's 6.1 only and it's 6 marks and you have to do 2 calculations for that, right? You need to get it right in the first part and the second mark to get the marks for the second part. Okay. A lot of the time they'll ask it as 2 sub questions rather than 1 multi-step questions, but there are a few at the end of each major question. Yeah. Okay, and then for negative marking, it says normally an incorrect answer cannot be correctly motivated if based on a conceptual mistake. If the candidate is therefore required to motivate in question 3.2, the answer given in 3.1 and 3. Is incorrect, no marks will be awarded for 3.2. Okay. Basically what they're saying is if you have to give an explanation in 3.1 and you have to follow up with your answer in 3.2 with basically another explanation to motivate your answer in 3.1, you won't get the marks if you are incorrect in 3.1. But if it's a calculation in 3.1, that answer from the calculation being carried over to 3.2, you will still get the full marks for 3.2. But again, if it's theory that they're asking for, you have to be correct in 3.1 to get it for 3.2. This is basically just the marking guidelines. I'm not really going to go over this. I kind of did explain this over here. It's similar for chemistry. You must write the formula down correctly. For example, with that reduction potential, is it reduction potential? What is it called? Standard reduction potentials, yeah. So you see how in this thing there is an arrow here that points both ways, right? Sorry, it's drawn badly. For the answer they require, which they want to know whether the reaction is going this way or whether the reaction is going this way. So they want you to put the correct arrow. So they want you to put either this one or this one, but not this. So if you put this, you're not going to get the mark. If you put the arrow in the right direction, you will get the mark. Okay, so it's important to know that for that section. But we will go over that when we get there. Just trying to see if there's anything else. Not much now. Oh, again, with chemical reactions, you get marks for the correct reactants, marks for the correct products, right? And the final marks is for just making sure that it's balanced. So basically you get marks for the one here, you get another mark for that, and then if it's balanced, it's basically saying there's 2 nitrogens on either side, and then 3 times 2, 6 hydrogens on either side as well. So that's just to make sure that it's balanced. So sometimes they'll give you an equation and they'll ask you to balance it, or they'll tell you to figure out what the actual equation is and make sure it's balanced. Yeah. But again, like I said, even if you don't know the full equation, write down the reactions, draw an arrow and leave it blank, you can still get 1 mark. Or if you know what the product is but you don't really know the reactions, write down the product, you can still get 1 mark. Okay. But be sure to put the arrow in. Like as you can see over here, they did not draw the arrows, so they did not get the marks. Alright. I know I'm talking a lot in this class, but you guys can watch this video back just before exams, or you can just go through this document again um, closer to the time, and then just to familiarize yourself with how they will be marking your papers in the exam. Okay, that's the end of the document. I will post this document on the classroom, so it's basically just the examination guidelines. There's a periodic table that I went over. Yeah, so I think that's everything that I wanted to cover with you guys today. What I did also just want to hear from you guys is, what sections do I need to focus on? What sections did you guys struggle with in high school?
Well, I can't really say because it's been like a year since I've done physics.
Okay. So you don't really have an idea of what specific sections you felt comfortable with or not?
Yeah,
Okay.
because
then-
I have to relearn everything again.
Okay, so what you guys can do for me then is over this week and next week, because our next class is only in 2 weeks time, just go through the content, go through the Mind the Gap study guide, these two, sorry. Go read through the content and just figure out what you are still kind of familiar with, what sections you do need help with. So just like try and read through this just briefly. You don't have to like study it or anything. And then when we have our next class, you can come and you can bring out these topics for me. Maybe even a couple days before the class, I'll send a message to the classroom, and then you just tell me what section you want me to focus on first. Because what I'm
Okay, thank you.
Okay, 100%. What I'm trying to do is to just make it focused on what you want me to teach. At the end, it will be a little bit different for you because I know I need to go over everything with you. So that's fine. Yeah.
Good evening.
Yes.
Yes. The electrical, say resistance and current
Yeah.
voltages, that I'm quite fine with. That is nothing that you have to worry. That is
Okay. No problem. That's helpful
good.
to me also. And then Dominic.
I've also haven't really had any work with this for quite some time, but I've looked through some past papers and I'm like remembering some of the things that I were good at.
Okay.
But I think I mostly like struggled with like the mechanical section.
Okay. No, I can definitely help you with that section.
Okay.
Okay. So
Yeah,
yeah,
because
what I would suggest for you guys to do is just go through the content again quickly, briefly over the next 2 weeks, and then just make a list of things, and then you can send it to the group that you would think you would need a lot of help on. Okay, because then it'll help me help you basically. Yeah, I think that's everything. I'm not sure there's anything else I need to go over with you guys. Yeah, before next week's class, I will send a message to the group and ask what section you guys want to cover, and then we will start with that. Okay. Do you guys have any questions before we end the class?
yeah, I just wanted to know if you were going to have separate classes for chemistry and like the physics on its own, or you're gonna have them combined. We can just send you anything.
Yeah, so for now you can send me anything. What I want to do is focus on physics for the first couple of months, and then we'll go over chemistry from January onwards, or depending how long physics takes us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so that's how I do it, because that's what I do for life science as well. I teach paper 1 first, and then I move on to paper 2 in the new year.
Okay, cool. So I can like focus on physics for now.
Yeah. Well, it depends on what you guys say. So if more people want chemistry section, they struggle with chemistry section more, then I'll focus on that first. But if more people want physics classes, then I'll focus on the physics first.
Okay.
Yeah. Are there any other questions before we end? Okay. Etienne, I see you turn your mic on.
Oh no, just wanted to say we all good. Or I am good, sorry.
Okay, 100%. Thank you guys for attending class. I think there was maybe 2 other students that didn't attend, but I will upload this class. One more student that didn't attend, that's fine. I will upload this class to the YouTube and it will be on the classroom, and then I will notify you guys on the classroom once the class is uploaded. Thank you for your time, and I will see you in 2 weeks' time. Good evening.
Bye.